love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted.
Okay. Hello everyone. I always ask you, Pedro, how are you doing? Should I do this again today or should we change the start?
Hello. I think, I can ask you, how are you, Marta?
Okay, I wish it was warmer here, but I think gym helps me to push through the darkness and coldness.
Yeah,
so
you've joined the gym recently, right?
Yeah, after a long break, but I'm very happy. All the endorphins are back in.
So you are trying, so you have like a New Year's resolution, right?
No.
In advance.
It's not gonna work. No, this one I'm not gonna call it a resolution because you know how it works. You never fulfill them, so I'll try to keep it as a habit, but let's see.
Yeah, sometimes I do, but yeah.
But yeah, talking about sports, I'm very excited today because we have a quite special guest who is a professional athlete, and we're gonna introduce him shortly. I'm never gonna reach his level at the gym, but well, trying. So we have Steven Benedict with us today, and as I already mentioned before, he's a professional athlete, but he's a professional track and field athlete, and he ran in some of the most prestigious events, including also Olympics. He was featured in over 50 national and international magazines, such as Men's Fitness, Men's Health, Fitness R, and many more. But his expertise and contributions extend far beyond the track as well. He is an author of the book called Good Morning Superstar and a founder of Fostering Success, which is a nonprofit organization that restores hope, encourages growth, and opposes the abandonment mindset of foster children by providing genuine guidance and opportunities. He's also a speaker, a coach, and overall a man of many talents. But I think he will tell us more about himself in a minute. Hello, Steven. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Martha, Pedro. Thank you very much for having me on today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for being here.
When we are reading about you, we came across this quote that goes like, why race? They need to be tested, perhaps. They need to take risks and a chance to be number one. Is it something you identify with?
Yeah, yes, without a doubt. I think everybody has their own individual race. I think life is a race, and I think we're running it at different paces, and we all have our own individual finish lines. And then obviously correlation for me, being on the track, transitions right over to life for me as well. Not only I feel like my life race has been very vast and very long, but a very short period of life thus far. So,
okay. Is there something I missed in your introduction, maybe that you would like to add? Because you have probably a lot of things to talk about. But before we move on, maybe there's something you'd like to add.
No, I think you covered pretty much everything. My two most passionate areas to speak on right now are the health and wellness space of human optimization, of longevity, and just performance and cognitive and social emotional learning, but then also the opposite end of foster care reform, and family in-house kind of conversations happening in the home, and that whole growth period.
Mm-hmm. When we read through your story, I think there was a very clear pattern of like how your life started and everything that happened in your early age through a career and basically what you did with those experiences. And I think it sounds like a very like coherent sort of entity. Could you tell us a little bit more about like how did you start running? Like how did it become such a big thing in your life?
I think, one, I was always very blessed with athletic capability. Running was just kind of something I enjoyed doing. It was just something I was naturally good at. And it was never really on my radar to run track and field. My adopted parents pushed me into it. My freshman year in high school, I was on the football field. The track coach saw me on the football field and he approached my parents, and then my mother especially, being the very affluent and bold woman she was, pushing her agenda and asking, oh, why don't you try this? You've tried every other sport under the sun. And I was going to actually do, I was going to do wrestling my freshman year in high school, but because I did, my very first sport was judo. So I did judo for 10 years, which is very technical type of, wrestling, but a little more technical and martial arts. But so I decided to kind of succumb to that whole thing and go out for it. And my freshman year in high school, I wound up winning county championships and kind of just kept on building after that, and found out that I had an inkling for it. But then I was also blessed in the space that I had a good coach and I had a good group of guys I was running around. So in high school, I got to really see and get a broader vision of what the track and field world was like. So I was able to run in some world meets when I was in high school and international meets. So I was very lucky because not a lot of, high school athletes are able to see that broad of a picture at such a young athletic age. And if you don't, it kind of, it doesn't give you the full picture of things and doesn't give you the kind of like the horizon to push for. So
did you enjoy it from the beginning, or was it gradually? Because you mentioned like you were interested in other sports at the beginning.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, but it was definitely a build. If I look back on my high school career now, I was running on a lot of natural talent. Yes, there was a lot of training put into it, but the one thing that has built up over time that I really enjoy, that I like, is that it's a soul sport. It's really me on the track versus the clock. I mean, yes, there are other athletes on the track, and you're running against other athletes, but ultimately, you're running your own race. Even in training sessions, you're running, it's not a team sport. It's not like football, baseball, basketball, or, any of those sports where there's a team reliance on it. It's really much what you put into it, you get back from it. But through high school, it was a work in progress, right? I was an athlete in high school. You're a good athlete in high school, so you want to socialize and do all those things. So I look back at it now, I could have put a lot more of a focused effort into it at that particular time. But again, I think I was also trying to compensate and catch up in my childhood years, because I didn't have very much of a childhood. So it was kind of that kind of ebb and flow, trying to figure out my space.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. That was one of the questions that popped in my head. Like, it must be very hard to pursue sports on a professional level as like a teenager, young adult, but also balance that out with like a social life and you hanging out with friends and stuff. Did you feel like, when you look back, do you think that you had to make a lot of sacrifices, or do you think like you kind of managed both like social life and family life and everything? Or coming back, you feel like, oh, maybe I should have pushed sport more, or maybe I should have pushed social life more?
I think there's a balance there, but I think I could have sacrificed a bit more, but I also did sacrifice a lot too, and put in the time and effort and stuff. But I did have a social life in some occasions, maybe too much of a social life on some spaces. So I think as I got into my latter years of my high school career, I got more serious and focused on it. The early, freshman, sophomore year was kind of still finding myself. But then when I was starting to really develop, my coach started to really take time and effort and, kind of speak into me. And I don't even think that really hit until like my freshman year in high school and in college. That's when I was really starting to focus and really starting to develop the skill sets and get better coaches around me, because there was a ladder of coaches that I had come across, and each one was different in their own approach. Just the early years probably could have used a little more sacrifice if I'm being not too judgmental myself, but yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think all of us are looking back and be like, but well,
Yeah.
it's quite hard. Did you like at this time, like growing up in high school and like college, did you have any sort of inspiration? It could be a runner or a coach that was pushing you forward, or was this something like an internal motivation that I just wanted to be better and kind of like every day be better than yesterday and things like that?
I don't know if I had a single motivation or a single inspiration in that space. It didn't have any like, I mean, there were athletes that I watched and athletes that I looked at, but for me to have a single entity of like, hey, I want to be like them or anything, I didn't really, I didn't really have that piece. I think it was more of a piece of trying to make up for past time that I felt like I lost. And I was trying to always be better, and I was always, and continue to do so now, is that I'm always trying to excel myself or to always trying to refine things. And one of my main focus too is, you know, being a good person overall, but also honoring my parents and trying to really honor the second chance that I feel like I was given, coming from where I came from. And that's why I'm always kind of on the grind and trying to do better. Like, I think one of my biggest downfalls is that there's never enough for me, right? I'm always like, I want more. Like, if I'm running fast, I want to know how I can run that much faster or tenths of a second faster and try to keep incrementally. And that can be a crutch, and it could be, it could be a blessing. It could be a curse at a lot of times, because you don't you don't sit and kind of revel and, pat yourself on the back in the meantime and say, hey, you've come this far. Take the time to, really appreciate the small wins. So yeah, in that sense, I didn't really have a lot of mentors or a lot of people I really looked up to. I think that came from my childhood, and I think it was more of a self-awareness thing and self-preservation type of way of living.
Yeah, you've mentioned a couple of times your childhood, and it would be interesting to, if you want to talk a little bit about it. Like, can you give us to the listeners like a summary of your childhood?
Yeah, sure. So I was at 4 months. I was put into foster care due to neglect and just unstable situations. Then I was put back into my mother's hands, and then my brother was born, and we're 2.5 years apart. And we were living in a motel rooms and very unstable situation. She was with another boyfriend at the time who sought fit to abuse us whenever it was feasible for him, took out a lot of anger out on us. I was hospitalized at a very young age. And then my grandparents found out about it. And then, them being there elderly, couldn't take care of two toddlers. It was just unsustainable. And so our next best option was to go back into foster care. We went back into foster care for about 6 years, moved up and down the East Coast from foster home to foster home, and then landed in a semi-permanent home, which was the latter part of our foster care experience. And then we were blessed enough to be adopted at the ages of 8 and 6. That was kind of the turning point for us. And that was kind of when we had gotten our second chance on things, and we were actually able to start living as kids at that point. And not, for me, in my perspective, not having to be a father figure for my brother, and to play a role that I was not prepared for or not suitable to even attempt to look at. But things like environmental awareness for me built up very quickly. What was my surroundings? Who was I who was I around? Trust was a big issue for us. So there was a lot of factors growing up very quickly, and our childhoods mine was very accelerated. My brother's not so much, because me being the oldest felt like I absorbed most of the things and kind of deflected and shielded from him. So yeah, that's kind of things in the short, that first half of that, those first 10 years of life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sounds pretty intense.
Yeah. So what do you learn from that experience? I mean, like, obviously it was a hard experience, but do you think that experience has made the man that you are today somehow? Like,
Yeah,
did you?
yes, without a doubt. There's a lot of things that I've built up in that particular time that has laid the groundwork and the foundation of who I've become, and also the learning lessons that I've learned along the way from that. But then there's also, the negative side of things too, of understanding what trauma does to a child and having to work through that later on and continue to work through that when you have certain things that come up. So, there's a lot of characteristics and a lot of life lessons learned. Some of the things, I feel like I've built up a lot of resiliency, getting through situations, a lot of self-awareness, a lot of social emotional learning, and, trust. Some of the things on the opposite side, trust was always a big thing for me, having to understand how to trust people and really understand that, they were there for the good and they weren't there for the bad. And having to be, a good listener for certain things. So yeah, there's a lot of life lessons there that I had to learn very quickly at a very young age that I think a lot of people are still learning, in their adult.
Yeah.
So like I said earlier, when we first opened up, I think everybody has their life race, and I always feel like my life was always very accelerated. So, and even in anything I do now, I feel like it's either I'm at 100 miles an hour, or I'm in a waiting period for it to go 100 miles an hour. There's no gray area for me. So yeah.
What is your view on the foster care system in general? Also, what advice would you give to families wanting to adopt or to foster a child?
Mm. Well, the foster care system has a lot of brokenness in it. It is a very vast system with a lot of moving parts, and it keeps evolving and getting bigger with more problems, with not a lot of solutions being put in place. And what I mean by that is that there's, a lot of attempts to try to shift the foster care system for the betterment. But the way in which things are approached, they're not really moving the needle. And so you take things like, just to scale a few things, the first space of how kids were placed were either in group homes, where it was just a bunch of kids in a group home. There was no supervision or anything. There was just kids living with kids. There was no growing up. There was no, tutelage of anything or guidance in any way. That obviously didn't work. And that's where a lot of kids were pulled from for things for human trafficking. A lot of very receptive and, vulnerable to that space. Then they moved into spaces of foster care, and foster care was taken away from the family, broken from the family, and put into another placement of a separate home where, kids were, several different kids were living under a different roof. And the problem with that is that people started utilizing it almost as a business model. So if you look at it from a standpoint where one household could have anywhere from 6 to 8 kids in there, and the person of that household was being paid $1,500 a month per each kid. Now that's quite a lump sum of money for one household. Yes, that is a business. And a lot of the money that was being allocated to that wasn't going to the needs of those kids.
Mm.
So again, that didn't work. And now their newest thing is kinship care. And kinship care has to do a lot with keeping the kids in the family line, moving them from immediate family to like aunts and uncles in the middle of the night. And while I understand the kind of lateral movement of that, or the horizontal movement of that to kind of keep the families together and not breaking them apart, there's still access, easy access for the original families to get in touch with these kids. So there's no really healing going on in the immediate home of
Mm.
pre-intervention for the families. So, and all of this money is being thrown at problems. And like, I mean, the kinship care programs, I think maybe last year, the year before, there was something like, gosh, 14, $15 million thrown at that particular structuring and not a whole lot of resolution or moving the needle or, involvement was happening on the back end. So, some of the biggest spaces is like I feel like you need to segregate and segment the system down from pre-intervention to kids in foster care to aging out youth and
Mm.
attack each one in its own individuality. And that's how you'll move the needle across the board by kind of pulling down on each beast by itself. Um, and as far as, for answering the second part of your question is what advice do I give for people
Mm.
who are looking to adopt? One, first and foremost, educate yourself. Educate
Mm.
yourself on the situation, educate yourself on what it takes to become a parent in that space, because it's not like your own children, right? It's not like you're having them from birth and you're able to groom and plant the seeds there and lay a foundation for them. A lot of these kids coming from foster care have a lot of issues that need to be dealt with, whether it be trauma, whether it be coming from broken backgrounds, whether it be coming from parents with drug usage,
Mm.
um, abusive backgrounds. There's a lot of trauma there and a lot of ways to approach that. And not all kids are the same. And they handle it different. They bottle things different. They
Mhm.
respond different. Some may be very calm in their approach and they may be very open to speaking, and some may not be and be very belligerent and not very communicative. So, education, get yourself around other foster families before you even get involved in that, or get yourself around other community with adoption, so you can kind of take the temperature and feel what works for you, and see if this is something you can commit to. And then even
Mm.
before you do that, maybe try to be a foster parent first,
Mm.
because foster
Mhm.
parents isn't a permanent situation. So you can get into that and learn what the process is, because it is a long drawn out process, and it is a process that is, they do a lot of background, they do a lot of due diligence, and that's appreciative, because you are taking over and taking responsibility for another life. So it is important to have all those pieces. And then after that, if that is the route that you decide to do, and that's, something you're committed to, the household is the nucleus of everything. So the
Mm.
conversations in the household have to be in a space in which, you, and it's very hard nowadays. I understand there's a lot of stress, not only, from life situations, but, things that have been thrown at us in the past 2 years, pandemics and, finances and everything. Yeah. So having a space in which these kids feel safe is super important, because that's gonna and allow them to grow and open up more and to share and to be able to communicate their story, and to know it's a safe space to, that they're not going to get what they've had in the past of a result of maybe abuse or abandonment or anything like that. So
Yeah.
there's a
Mhm.
lot. There's a lot in the space, and there's a lot that goes into it.
That's a good question, because like I sometimes admit that well, I have a child of my own, and at some point I wonder it would be a good idea to try to adopt a child or to be a foster family. But yeah, like I understand also that it's not like one can imagine, right? You have to be really prepared, because it's another kind of thing. But yeah, I appreciate the answer, because it's helpful to know.
Mhm.
Yeah. And as you said, it's not like one kind of mold fits all. Like we're talking
Yeah.
about humans. And what you said about this being a business model, like it's horrible. I
sucks.
mean, I think everybody tries to believe that people are good, but there are some people that will use opportunities for their own sake. And that's horrible that, those kids have to pay the price for it. Could you tell us a bit more about the fostering success, since we mentioned it already at the start?
Yeah, sure. Fostering Success is an organization in development and continually evolving, and continually shifting with the tides of things. But we're very innovative in our approach to that. And a lot of the things that I've said thus far is that, one, I've been involved in so many organizations, from speaking at gala dinners to being involved in events, and just really been behind the scenes and at the forefront of things, of understanding kind of models for organizations, nonprofits, and how they approach their allocation of money to the impact that they bring. And a lot of the conclusions that I've come across is that they're all doing the same thing. It's all a replicated model, and it's all the same, raise funds and do an event here, and which is all great, and their hearts are in the right place, but it's not making any tangible change. So upon doing that for us, and thinking of our model, is that there are a few different tangible differences in what we do and what we approach. One, we're very big on our mission statement and just establishing hope and establishing, ground set of tangible changes for these kids, and making impactable changes, being able to listen to the problems and actually bring solutions to those problems. And then also having alliances. And the alliance piece is very important for us, in the fact that it helps us to make those changes within the system, whether it be from reform, bill reforming, or whether it be one of the spaces that we're very passionate about is the aging out youth. And it's a space in which has been very overlooked, because after a certain age, unfortunately, a lot of kids for adoption are looked at undesirable. Because they are older, they have a lot more baggage, and it's just kind of the way of the world. People, they want a kid that is younger so they can kind of grow with them and develop them. Teenagers are very tough, and you add the layers of foster care and all the other stuff on top of being a teenager. It's a tough situation. So one of our spaces, one of our biggest passionate spaces, is the aging out youth. And that's all about grooming them and forming community around them, and helping them build the skill sets in order for them to thrive in the big world, right? And also have a community to set back on, things like business development, resume building, just finding out their passions, speaking into those things, having them part of mastermind groups, social emotional learning courses, and things like that. And we do that because that's the tail end of things. These kids are ready to go out into the work world and try to find and make their own footprint. And if they have a community behind them, they'll come back and re-water that community, and hopefully cause a downward waterfall effect down through the foster care system, where it becomes less and less and less that they're staying in the foster care system longer, right? And that's one of the biggest things too, is that during their protectiveness while they have the allocations and the funds under foster care, that no organization is utilizing that, right? These kids are taken care of while they're in the foster care system. Then we need to utilize the funds that there are given to their growth. Like things like, just a roof over their head and a bed to sleep in and food to eat, and then also developing their minds and their passions and their dreams. Because a lot of them lose that. They lose the fact that, oh, well, this is my life. I don't have much hope after this. I don't know what I'm going to do. And the sad part is that statistically, on the back end of that, is that for aging out youth, 40% of them within the first 3 to 4 months are either homeless, they're incarcerated, they're involved in drugs, or they're sexually trafficked, or they're dead. And these are very real numbers and very real life situations for these kids. So that's one of our spaces, and that's one of the spaces we're passionate about, and we're making some changes in. And we have some other big things on the future for that. But as we said, we're always in alignment of growing and evolving and being able to shift and pivot. And our alliance piece is a piece of having several different spaces, whether it be faith-based, tech, or psychology, all inclusive on our panel, so that we're getting pulls from each space, and we use it as a conglomerative together as a nucleus to make a bigger impact across the board, instead of just saying, hey, this is fostering success, there's another nonprofit, and this is what we do. No, we have a team of people who are passionate about the same thing, and we're all going after the same initiative, whatever initiative that might be for that year, which we usually hold a yearly meeting at the beginning of the year, and have some really bright minds to be like, oh, well, this is the initiative I think we should try to attack this year. And that's what we do all year, is just attack that one thing all year. And we see tangible change by doing that.
That's cool.
That's great. But the numbers you told us about are insane. Like you said, 40%, right?
Yeah, 40%. It's crazy, and it just gets worse. And obviously, with inflation and things going on right now, and all these other kind of environmental factors, they all affect the bottom line. Is and that's for everybody. They affect the bottom line, but even more so for these kids is the essentials. Am I going to be able to keep a roof over my head? Am I going to have a hot meal at night? And am I going to have a bed to sleep in? Those are the basics.
Yeah. Plus, as you mentioned, like some of them are teenagers, and it's already hard. But to add to it, like uncertainty, lack of support, no guidance in the future, like that's a lot. I think we're going to jump back to sports topic, but I'm very grateful you shared this with us, because we didn't know. We're not from the US as well, so we don't know how things work there. But we would like to jump back to sports for a little bit. And so we heard and saw that you qualified for Olympics as well. And could you tell us how much you remember from Olympics, or was it just a blur because it was so exciting and so many things were happening? So how was the whole experience for you?
It was very overwhelming. There was a lot of, outside kind of distractions going on, but I mean, the buildup was tough at that particular time, but I had a lot of family situations going on the back end. So I was kind of battling two different things, and unfortunately, when I got to the first round, I wound up tearing my hamstring, and I couldn't run, post that. But, the experience was amazing. And I had to take off several years to recuperate. Was with a different coach, but it was amazing. And, I'm blessed to be, have been part of that. And now I'm on the tail end of that, healthier than ever, and training for my last Olympic Games, for the Paris Games, which will be in 2024.
That's cool.
Super excited. I'm in great form right now, and just moving along, and have great coaches, some very, very detailed coaches on everything that we're doing. So I'm excited to set the bar higher than I was. But it's something that, coming where I came from is just, it's bittersweet for me, but not the end. So I have a lot more to accomplish, and I'm really looking forward to how things are unfolding right now. So.
And what's the
Super cool.
preparation for an event like that, for Olympics? What's the preparation like, for instance? Because I can't imagine.
So let's say, I run the 200 meters is my concentration. So you say we're on the track for 20 seconds, and I'm training about 30 hours a week for a 20-second race.
Jesus.
So yeah. So that the time doesn't add up, but it is a lot, and it's just very, very, you have to be very detailed on everything we do, like preseason, mid-season, and getting ready for race season, and then peaking and all that stuff. That's just the track stuff and the workout stuff. Then you have all the recovery stuff on the back end. So you have your nutrition, and then you have seeing your doctors and being able to keep inflammation down in your body, and being able to get a good night's sleep and all those things. So it's a full-time job. It's not just running. I mean, a lot of people have come across and like, oh, so you run around in circles?
Yeah.
Like, no, not really. Not really.
And do you train the day before the race, or do you rest, or how does that work? Like, I know it's a silly question for someone like me, but
did I train for
the day before?
Oh, the day before.
Yeah.
So I usually train. So I'll go all the way up to maybe I try to either get a day or 2 days off before I race. Just to get full recovery into my nervous system. It depends on how fast I'm recovering, and that's kind of tested and found out based upon the workload for the week that I've done, or the previous 2 weeks. And we start having a taper down. So if we're like 2 weeks out from a race, that previous week will be the last heavy week, and then the next week will be a lighter week, and then the week of race week will be even lighter and more quality over quantity type reps. So
okay, a serious question now. Can you have beer and like fries and burgers, or your diet has to be like super clean, like pristine?
For different parts of the season, one, I don't drink beer. I don't like beer. I just never had a palate for it.
Okay.
I do like tequila and stuff. But,
tequila is like healthy, right? Ish.
Yeah, tequila is healthy.
With some lime, that's extra vitamins.
Lime, exactly.
Salt.
Exactly. What did I have? Oh, I had in Barcelona. I had what's the alcohol they're famous for there? Oh gosh,
Barcelona. It's like a spirit, or
yeah, like a spirit. It was oh man, I forget. One of the tour guides, he took me on a food tour, and I had it chilled by itself, and it was great. Gosh, I can't remember the name of it. I'll think of it. But in answering that, yeah, our diets have to be pretty on point, especially if we're trying to hit a certain weight, like a weight to power ratio. But there are times, where we need to refill, and we have our cheat meals, and we, have burgers and fries. Like I eat meat, I eat red meat, and when I feel like I'm dipping in energy, I'll throw red meat in my diet, like have a hamburger or something like that in order to replenish myself. But for the most part, I try to keep it pretty even keeled. I mean, I don't really drink that much anyway, and if I do I'm only good for one drink anyway. So
okay,
yeah,
that's good. Do you have any like favorite race that you did, and you were like, "That's my favorite one," or all of them are your favorite ones, or it's always a pain?
I think every race is different. The venues are different. I like racing in Rome. Rome is great to race in. I raced in Pordenone this past summer, which was up north in Italy, which was a quaint little town that I didn't even know was an international race up there. And I raced there, and it was really beautiful. I'm looking forward to racing in Spain this year. Raced out east a little bit further. Went to Japan. So it's great out there too. Every venue is different. They have their own culture, and I think that's the biggest thing for me is that I really love experiencing different cultures and submersing in that, and just being able to travel and do that. That's a real gift in the sport, and being able to do that is especially when they pay for it is great. So
all the sushi in Japan for free.
Yeah. Well, sushi in Japan is different than the sushi that we're used to eating.
So
I know.
Tell,
Yeah.
We need to go once and test it as well.
It's not that common, apparently, sushi there, as far as I know.
No, they have like raw fish there. It's just like sashimi all the time.
True.
Yeah.
Our Western sushi is probably like whatever burgers for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I saw that you wrote a book called Good Morning Superstar. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. It's my first book out, and it was just really kind of like some notes that I had compiling, and I got the idea of putting it into a book version of it. And basically, it's not about my story. It has no storyline in it, and it's more of a self-help 90-day book. So you do a chapter a day in it, and upon the left side of the page, there's a quote, and then on the right side, there are my thoughts on that quote. There was a quote that I actually read and then took some notes on whatever I was feeling in that particular moment, how I translated into my own words and my thought process on it. And then there's 2 take action questions. And the reason why those questions there are that I'm a big believer in that the better questions we ask ourselves, the better results we get. And I think that, any successful person knows how to ask very good questions. And they will get the answers that they are looking for. It's the person that doesn't ask the questions and just goes aimlessly into something, doesn't know why they are failing in things. But that's kind of the premise of the book. It's to help you figure out your own thought process in certain things, and also the aspects of doing it either first thing in the morning or last thing at night. Those 2 areas, like the first 20 minutes in the morning and the last 20 minutes at night, are the most receptive for your brain to absorb things. So that's why I usually do it in the morning when I first wake up, to set the tone for my day and to set some initiatives for my day, and to kind of put myself in the first. I don't jump up and watch the news. I don't watch the news at all because there's nothing but garbage on it. So I have to be, especially this day and age, you have to be very, very careful about what you let into your subconscious, and also what you let into your frame, because then you carry it around with you, and who you speak to. So it's kind of like a self-preservation mechanism or additive to your day to help you push in the right direction. And the more you do it, the more of a habit you'll be able to start have in your own mind frame, in your own mindset, and to understand your own self-awareness and understand where your thoughts are going, if they're going the right direction, how to reel them in, and how to keep things even-keeled and keep your space very calm. To be able to produce great results.
Yeah, sounds very interesting. I want to put it on the list of my next books to read, to be honest, and I recommend to the listeners also.
It's a very easy read. That's why I loved it. I made it like that. Very easy, not taking time away from like anybody and everybody can read it. It's not to like long chapters or anything. It's very easy. You just kind of like an active reading type of book, and the biography and all that is in the works. That'll come out at a later date, but so we're talking about that. But yeah, and the great thing about this book is that all the proceeds go towards helping out foster families.
That's great.
Cool. Yeah, I like how everything you're telling us, it just goes like links together in a circle, like everything you do. I think you're very like mindful about whatever you do in life. And I think I agree with you a lot that there is so much things going on around that it's very easy just to get like way too much shit in heads. And then it's very hard to clean it up and get a peace of mind. And what that is very important for you as an athlete, I assume, also just having a clear mind so you can perform well. So we have a bunch of questions right now. We need to pick two. we have one for sure. They're gonna ask you at the end, and there's another one. And we need to see which one we should ask you. I don't know, Pedro. Do you have any the ideas?
It's your turn.
It's my turn. Okay, I asked the silly ones already. Maybe we can ask something else. Okay, we can maybe ask you what excites you these days and what drives you these days.
That's a good question. I think right now the future excites me because I feel like I have a lot to accomplish, not only left in my athletic career, but as far as taking what I've done so much, like it's very hard to try to have a full-time athletic career and then also try to build things on the back end, which can get kind of shifty at times, and trying to get the right people around you. So I haven't been able to really dive into so much of the corporate world as much as I would have liked to. And I think that those seeds are starting to kind of get planted a bit, as I push towards the latter part of my career. So I'm excited to shift and take what I've learned on the track and all of that due diligence of discipline and finding out self-awareness and all that stuff, and transition it into something else of life, being able to impact more in that space and opening up that space, because training takes a whole lot out of my day, a lot. So I'm excited about that. I'm trying not to get too far ahead of myself. I try to live a lot in the moment, which can get very hard too. But I'm really focusing on that and really trying to make an impact and trying to be valuable, and trying to build out valuable assets for myself of, quality assets that will bring help and change and serve other spaces well. So yeah, I'm excited about what the future may hold and the opportunities that'll come in that space. And then probably also being able to eat what I want to eat.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, we asked our favorite last question for everyone, but we're gonna rephrase it slightly because our guests hate the word advice. So we'd like to ask you, you have to pick one lesson you learned the hard way in your life that we'd like to share with the audience. It doesn't have to be advice. It could be something that they should keep in mind or they can learn something from.
Well, I think the first thing that comes off my head is comparison, right? And I think, and this goes back to our opening statement about running races, and the quote that I have tied myself to a lot is being able to run your individual race and not comparing yourself to the person next to you or where they're at in their particular life race, whether they're ahead or whether they're behind you. I think one of our biggest killers nowadays in society is that we're always comparing, whether it be culture, whether it be society status, or whatever label we want to put to it. And that's why a lot of the turmoil and the problems we have manifested because we're constantly comparing ourselves, whether they're not doing it the way we want it to be done or they're doing it better than we're doing it. And we don't understand why we're not progressing in the manner that we want to progress, or we haven't seen the fruits of our labor in that particular, area of life. And that has to do a lot with a lot of lacking patience. And if there's anything that I've learned is, 1, comparison kills. 2, without patience, you're not going to move forward. You have to have patience in the process and understand your process and understand you're right where you need to be for the things that you're meant to accomplish, and to be able to run your race, stay in your lane, and run the race model that best suits you. That does not mean alienate everybody around you. That means take what works for you, mold it for, and be malleable to life, and to be able to change and pivot because life is constantly changing around you. You have to be able to adapt as quickly as possible. So the comparison factor is huge. And I think it's a killer of all dreams.
Yeah, thank you very much. I always enjoy what
That
all
was great.
guests share at the end of the chapter. It's very insightful. Yeah.
Appreciate you guys having me very much today.
Yeah, same.
That's great. And he did the same thing again when we started from a quote and then we finished with a quote. I think I have a special talent to kind of link things together and put it in a nice frame. Very nice.
I try to keep everything in alignment. That's one of the biggest things that I'm very aware of, even on any projects and brands that I have, is that they're all connected in some way. I'm not running off on tangents and running in a different direction. That they're either pieces of me or they're branches off of what I can speak into from life situations. And I think that's important to do.
Yeah, for sure. It was a pleasure to have you on. We will link everything you want us to link in the episode. And we are all coming to Paris in 2024.
Perfect. Perfect. I will look forward to seeing all you guys. And I look forward to the episode coming out and sharing with everybody.
Yeah. Thank you a lot, and have a good time.
Okay.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
You too. We'll get some sleep.
Yeah, we'll go to sleep soon.
Bye. Nice to have you.
Bye.
I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no, I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe